Good morning, everyone. It's Jamie from Independent Street Tarot and Seasons and Ritual, and I'm coming on to talk about the Stark Moon in Scorpio. That will be exact tomorrow, November 1st at 7:48 a.m. Central Standard Time here in New Orleans. Today it is October 31st, so happy Halloween, happy Samhain, happy soon to be Day of the Dead, and of course, All Saints Day. So Dark Moon Scorpio. So this is a really big dark moon. Um, the energy is really big. People have been calling me. My friend who is a Capricorn called me. She's like, "What's happening, man? I'm freaking buzzing over here." And I'm like, "It's because Mars is in opposition." And so we have the sun and the moon that are conjunct in Scorpio that is actually trining Saturn and Pisces. So we'll talk about that. We then have a grand water trine that's happening. And then we have a kite formation that's also happening. So first and foremost, with the dark moon, the sun and the moon are together at 9 degrees of Scorpio. That 9 degrees mark is to me, still young degree mark. It's unjaded. It's full of energy, full of hope. It's got good ideas, right? And so the sun and the moon together at 9 degrees, and they are trining Saturn, who is in Pisces. So we have a lot of water in this dark moon, not just because of the sun and the moon being in Scorpio, but because we do have this grand water trine that doesn't even involve the sun and the moon. But they are involved in the sense that they are in Scorpio, and the trine involves Mercury, who's also in Scorpio. But right now, the sun and the moon are trining Saturn and Pisces. And this is really important because this Saturn is bringing some stability to all this water. Saturn, as we know, is Aquarius's ancient ruler. Saturn now rules Capricorn. Saturn is known as boundaries, the taskmaster. Saturn has got a bad rap here lately, but we've been talking about it and how its story has changed. Before, when Saturn would come in, it would be like, "Oh no, this is it. This is the end." It was like 40 lashings. And I always say that's part of that old white man astrology that we're getting out of. Um, anyway, that's a whole other subject. But anyway, we're getting out of. And so I see Saturn because the age of Saturn, things were, they said like no one had any fences or anything because everyone knew their boundaries. They knew exactly how much space they could hold. They knew how much they could handle. And so if we see Saturn in that time, as that time or in that energy, then Saturn is very beneficial, right? Saturn says, okay, well, how much can you hold? How much can you work with? And that's it. That's good. And then you can become extremely abundant because that time of Saturn, it was extremely abundant. Um, so the sun and the moon trining Saturn and Pisces is holding that space in Pisces to keep things balanced, to keep things abundant, to not allow us to go under. That lower Pisces is the illusion, it's addiction, it's narcissism. Um, it's having our feelings manipulated. And that is a huge theme that I think is happening with this kite formation, with this grand trine, is that we're getting out of this area of allowing our feelings to get manipulated, right? Which is very easy. And that was all part of that gaslighting, all part of that narcissism, part of that lower age of Pisces energy that we've been in for, thousands of years. So that might makes right, just like that toxic masculinity, we're moving out of that. We had that Merkaba um activation a couple days ago. If you guys didn't see that video, just go back a couple videos because this divine feminine energy is here on the planet, right? And we're moving more into that divine energy. And so, which when that divine and feminine energy here, it means that divine masculine energy has to meet it because we are masculine and feminine within us. So Mars is at that 29 degree, the degree of mastery of Cancer, right? And then Mars will move into Leo for a little bit with this energy and then come back into Cancer. And like, so his entire, it's going to be about 6 months, but he does dip into Leo for a little bit. So he's at this 29 degrees of Cancer. And so this is the grand water trine, Mars in Cancer, Mercury in Scorpio, who's at 28 degrees, and then Neptune, who's also in Pisces and rules Pisces, is at 27 degrees. So we have Saturn, who's also in Pisces, keeping that stability at 12 degrees because he's retrograded back to 12 degrees. And then we have Pisces ruler, who is Neptune, and he's sitting at that 27-degree mark. Okay. So Neptune rules dreams, right? My friend Helen always used to say it's the intelligible, right? And it's interesting because Neptune is that idea of pulling us underwater, right? And then we have this kite in Pluto, which is pulling us to the underground. So this is a lot of under the surface activity, if you will, that is happening. So in one of the things that it is consistent with this message is that when things go underground, that's part of that mystery, okay, the great mystery. And we don't know exactly how those things work, but they do. Okay. And it's the same with like creation and black holes, right? And that black matter and that black energy. We know in space that's where things get created. And we have theories about how energy works and it does this and that. And then all of a sudden, boom, something happens. But it's still a mystery. And so allow things to go under and get transmuted. Allow things to just end. Like this, a big story about this is just ending old stories and in the stories that we put ourselves in. You know, if you are having the story about another person or and you're inserting yourself in that, and if you're not presently having a conversation with that person, but in your mind there's a story with that person, kind of back off on that right now, okay? Because again, Scorpio's energy in its highest self is being very present. And it's that idea of being present, understanding your feelings, and then creating from that. That's that high priestess energy. And a lot of times we create from old stories and how they made us feel. And so that's how we keep continuing our life path, our life journey. And and it's because things are modeled to us as people and we get it, right? We understand it. We're like, okay, that's safe. This is how it's done. Even if it's not safe, or if it's very toxic, we just keep modeling it. Because we see things that happen in our past. So that's how we model our future. And where we are right now is that we're at a huge crossroads, if you will. And so we've got to model the future after the present, like what's happening right now presently. And one way we do that is we have to be aware when we're starting to make a scenario with an old story. And it's a lot easier than you think. And again, if you're kind of confused on that, see where you are in life, see what you're thinking about, see where your feelings come from, and see if it's actually based on something that's happening right now in your present. And that means like if you're at work, are you thinking about work or are you thinking about something else, you know? And a lot of times when I notice when I go and do things, a lot of people at work have their ear things on and they're talking to other people, which kind of stresses me out. But I guess they're not operating heavy machinery, so that's good. But the Scorpio dark moon is about being present, seeing where we are, going into the mystery and allowing those old stories to just go. Because because the kite formation is the fact that Pluto and Mars are in an opposition to each other. Pluto is at 29 degrees of Capricorn, which we know he's been there back and forth for 2 years now. And then Mars is at that 29 degrees of Cancer. And so Mars in Cancer to me, I've been reading it a little bit different than other astrologers, but that was defending the home. Mars felt comfortable in Cancer now, when before they would say he was at his detriment because Mars has turned into more of this divine masculine energy. Um, Mars understands accountability. So Mars knows how to defend its home. Mars understands compassion. I mean, maybe not like 100%, but he's getting there. You know, he can say the word compassion without like being like, what's that? Um, Empathy, all those things that put us in that divine energy, right? So now he is a spiritual warrior, and he's in opposition with Pluto because they're across from each other. And he's helping Pluto at that last degree, which I call the degree of mastery, in Capricorn to move forward with courage, but in a different energy. Okay, so it would be like if before, well, I mean, we all lived it, right? Working, because Capricorn is how we work. And so if we want to work differently and not just like at work, but work with ourselves and the stories we tell ourselves. And if we want to be more loving when we work with ourselves and say something a little more kind, if you will, well, we have to have courage in doing that. We have to be like, if I tell myself and give myself a good pep talk, like, it's okay, we can get this done. Um, you don't have to say yes to everything. What's meant for you will still keep coming in. And you do that lovingly. You have to believe that in order for it to keep working, instead of a lot of times where we just kind of berate ourselves and just like, no, you have to go. What if something doesn't come again? You're so stupid, on and on and on, right? Well, now Mars is understanding that you can move forward and you can be compassionate and you can be, you can get just as much done with a pep talk as you can with um, a non-pep talk. I don't know, but you guys know what I mean. I don't know what the right word with berating yourself or berating other people, right? Because you don't have to, what moves us is a lot of different things. And a lot of times what moved us was fear, anger, the fear of being humiliated, right? All those toxic masculine energies. So we were just like, keep our heads down, don't say anything. Um, come back with the quickest remark, all those things in order to be on our best game. And with that Saturn in Pisces, who is allowing us to kind of see through that illusion and allowing us to be like, oh, wait, if I live my life this way and I can sustain it and it's thrivable, then this is okay. I don't have to keep up with the Joneses at the same time. Um, we're also seeing if the Joneses are doing a lot of shitty things, and we're like, yes, you are, or, just like, that's not, and then they were like, no, here, it's actually this. And then we would be like, oh, okay, swayed by the amenities, like my sister and I would say. That's all coming to pass, right? That's all coming to the light. Lower Scorpio was known as like secrets, which I always laugh, secrets and like magic and things like that. Um, but I could see why it would be put into that lower camp, right? Because we don't know all the mysteries to life, right? So there is this idea of secrets and how things get created, but it wasn't supposed to be negative, right? Like if Scorpio was secrets, it was like um sacred, things like that, not secrets or manipulation, which, lower Scorpio is tasked with, but is known to have. So it's getting us out of those lower Scorpion vibes of secrets. It's getting us out of those lower Scorpion vibes of manipulation. It is Mars working with Pluto to say, we don't have to have our feelings manipulated to move forward. We can just trust our feelings because Mars is in that grand water trine. Mars is talking to Neptune and Mercury, and Mercury's at that 28, and Mercury is the god of communication. And he's saying, you know what? Just because we don't know why we woke up this morning and what used to bother us all the fucking time is now gone, we can be okay with that. Let's move forward. We don't have to dissect that. We don't have to go back. We can take ourselves out of these stories and just move forward. The way I want to work is free from A, B, C, D, and E. The way I want to work isn't with old stories, like old racist stories about my family lineage, right? Like I just want to show up. This is who I am, and I want to get things done. I want to be seen for me. Of course, I can pay homage to my ancestors, right? This is the season that we're in. At the same time, I always say, like, the ancestors also want to be brought into the future, like for the ones that want to stay in the past, we allow them to stay in the past, but the ones who want to keep moving forward and have that courage and that strength, right? Those are the ancestors that we walk with. Those are the ancestors that have that knowledge that we need. Those are the ancestors that we go and talk to because they've been there, right? They've seen things, they've experienced things, but they have that worldly earth knowledge. And so it is that higher perspective. And this is that idea of that kite taking us higher and moving us forward. So working with your feelings, the underworld, Pluto, but also working with your feelings in your dream underwater, Neptune, having that courage to keep moving forward because you know who you are, Mars in Cancer, you are your own home, you are your best home, having that courage. Even though you don't know the quote unquote outcome, but if you're always going to show up with the best intentions, your heart, getting things done, just to help yourself first, which is totally okay. And then everyone else, that's going to keep moving us forward. And then being able to talk about it, that's that Mercury, right? In Scorpio, because before in Scorpio, we would say, well, but yeah, what if they're fooling me? But I'm scared because what if they're just manipulating the shit out of me? When the reality of it is, if we just stay present and we can read the room and we trust ourselves, we will know. And the thing is this, let's say you go in, you meet someone, you don't have a good feeling about it, so you don't quote, you just kind of show up whatever, but you're like, I don't know, I don't like this, I'm not going to go along with it. That's fine. Just trust your gut. There's other things that are going to come along. You know, I mean, I have to do this all the time. This is my job, right? And, I could just, and sometimes myself, I'm like, I don't have a good feeling about this. I kind of keep it to myself. Other people are great. They had a great time. That's fine. That's fine. We're all here to live our lives, right? It doesn't mean my experience was the right 100% best experience and theirs was wrong. It's who I am as an individual, and my feelings, and I trust them and I go along with them, but I have to trust them because I have to stay present in the moment. If I'm thinking about 1986, and then applying it to where I am at life today, it gets real dicey. Okay. It gets real dicey. And we can even see this in our intermediate relationships, like I have friends that are a lot younger than me, right? And we'll be talking, and then all of a sudden it's like, what are you saying? And they're like, what are you saying? Because our life experience is a lot different, right? And so I think sometimes I'm being perfectly clear and they do, and it's a little fuzzy, right? But it's not that it's wrong. It just comes to life experience, being present, understanding where you are in time, right? And how you want to move forward. And this is that dark moon. We go into that sacred darkness where we have to be present, where we have to notice stories that we're telling ourselves that we cannot bring along with us. And if we can just stay quiet, and we don't have to stay quiet. I know like meditation is very important and it really is. But the idea, you don't have to meditate for 20 minutes on this. The idea, if you sit with a dark moon, um, and you allow the ancestors who want to stay in the past to stay in the past, and you allow the ancestors who want to move forward with you. And you kind of just cut your brain off for that split second and you go into that darkness, and that's the seed that you plant, and that's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. That kite formation that involves Pluto, Mars, Neptune, and Mercury is going to move us forward. When we need the right words to talk about what's happening, a little bit probably in the future, it will happen. When we need the words just to tell ourselves, I trust, we can allow that happen because we're allowing ourselves to trust that divine masculine energy in Mars. And that's a big step for a lot of us. But it's also saying I'm allowing myself to trust the divine masculine energy in me. And that's also a big step for a lot of us. So we are in this intense form of creation. We are in this intense moment of moving forward. And we are in this tense moment of just trust, self-trust, trusting in the unknown, trusting in the mystery, trusting in staying present, and trusting in moving forward. So you guys, if you feel a little buzzy, if you want things to move faster, just try to stay present. As always, do the normal things, drink lots of water, maybe journal a little bit, go for walks. But I also want to impress upon us this idea of grounding a little bit differently, especially when we have kite formations or we're working with a bunch of water. Soon we're going to be working with a bunch of air once Neptune moves into Neptune, God bless Neptune, once Pluto moves into Aquarius. And that idea is just working, instead of like grounding from the feet with those roots really far, it would just be this idea of grounding with light, a beautiful string, right? So we can float, we can move, we allow things to fall away. We don't have to be so tangible because we're working a lot with the intangible right now with all this water and Neptune and Scorpio and Pisces. But it's that trust that we are connected, but we're moving, and then when it's putting us in the right position. So just ground a little bit differently. Maybe have light come from the heart, put you in the earth, keeps you connected, but you can see it like it's just moving really beautifully, knowing that you're in the right orbit, if you will. Okay, friends, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Grand water trine, kite energy, sun and moon, speaking to that Saturn in Pisces. So just know that's keeping us stable. That's bringing some logic in all of this. That's why we're not floating totally into outer space. That's why Saturn's giving us some boundaries to hold on to while it's sitting there with all this water. Okay. Happy dark moon. Go to that sacred place. Go to the darkness. That's where everything is created. All right, friends, I'll see you in a couple days. Enjoy the holiday. Don't eat too much candy because I don't want anyone to get any tummy aches. But till then.